And so, can you explain for me how exposure to financial concepts at a young age can change, a person's financial trajectory, especially within the Black community, our people?
Yeah, so look, I think it's really important to think about, when we talk about generational wealth, one of the biggest hindrances for us getting there is truly living with past generational traumas. And so when you think about being exposed to financial literacy at an early age, what it's going to do is just give you one, the confidence and understanding and a know-it-all to actually better managing your money, right? I think there's a direct correlation to stress levels, when it comes to how long you live, different levels of health, etc. Obviously health is wealth, but I think once you're exposed to financial literacy at an early age, it gives you that ability to confidently say, okay, I'm going to save, confidently say I'm going to invest, confidently be able to say I'd rather own rather than rent. I can go in and say, hey, I have a 650, 700, 750 credit score, right? Like at the end of the day, and I always equate financial literacy to its own language. And therefore, the earlier you learn how to speak it, the more likely you'll become fluent in it. And so, my biggest goal is for our children to speak it the same way they're fluent in sports or culture, right? They're going to know all the latest dances, they're going to know which athlete is the best, etc. But being exposed to financial literacy at an early age, that's going to give them that same confidence.
When we have conversations in our community, even with adults, we talk about stocks and investments, et cetera. Even adults are still confused about how these things work. So when you're talking about literacy for kids, at what age or at what types of experiences is it a right time to start introducing financial concepts to them?
The moment a child can walk and talk, you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, right? I think all of us just think about the things that we learn, right? We learn a lot of stuff just through osmosis, right? Purely just being submerged in the culture of it, right? And so at an early age, when my child says, hey, I want to buy XYZ, right? And obviously, to people that don't know me, I have a lot of children, right? And so I have three. And so if I'm going to a Target or something and my daughter or son says, hey, I want XYZ, they need to, one, understand the value of a dollar. They need to understand, hey, mommy and dad had to work to get this. Or hey, right, you want to be on, on the tablet to watch YouTube. Hey, you own this stock. And so I don't think there's never a certain thing is too early, right? And the reason I say that is because just through osmosis, they'll start being conditioned into the overall psychology of what money is and how the world of money works.
And so it's interesting you say that because like I have three also, and when my son asks for something, I can put that on like, hey, we need to teach you about financial literacy, etc. How much did you save, etc. And even though my daughters do save, it's I'm gonna still buy it for them. If I got
Mhm.
the money to do it, then I'm not spending my 11-year-old daughter's money to buy
Yeah.
something that she wants. I'm gonna just do it. And so, so how do you think about that as a father, somebody who's trying to raise children to still teach them to be responsible? Here's the value of a dollar when you just want to be dad, and especially with girls, guys like us. I want to just take care of them because I'm not going to let some knucklehead later make it feel like oh, he got me.
No, what I think is it gives your kids the ability to goal set, right? Like at the end of the day, the
Yeah.
vast majority of Americans, right? I want to say 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, right? Half of Americans don't have $1,000 saved. And what that stems from is a lack of budgeting and not managing their money properly. And the thing that I'm even trying to get to is impulse decisions, right? And so when you're saying, hey, your child wants to buy XYZ, they need to understand that whether you're 10 or 40, right, there has to be something where you have to be able to control your impulse decisions, especially if it doesn't align with your overall financial goals. And so when a kid is saying, hey, I want to buy this certain toy, I think it's good to start saying, hey, let's goal set. You're getting an allowance, right? Let's
Yeah.
figure out if I'm giving you $100 a month or a week or whatever it is, right? Let's figure out if this toy or whatever it is costs $200-300. How long will it take us to get to that goal? And once we get to that goal, do we want to have zero in our savings, or do we still want to have some
Yeah.
money
Yeah.
just in case the next toy comes up? And so, at the end of the day, I think it's just a function of teaching, right? Obviously, right? We're gonna get our kids whatever, but at the same token, it's a good practice for it to be their money because as a business owner, I'm going to pay my children for working in my business. I'm going to get a tax write off. So now technically it is their money. Now let's actually teach them how to be responsible with that.
Yeah, yeah, like that. What are some big misconceptions you see in our community, around wealth building? What are things that we just think are one way and they really not that way?
I mean, the biggest misconception is that you got to be rich in order to get rich, right? Like at the end of the day, right? Investing has been democratized. Anybody and everybody has the ability to own stocks. And also, I think people don't understand there's power in compounding, right? I think, and I say this all the time, like I remember growing up, whether it was watching Comic View or just having pure relatives, it was always the joke around bill collectors. And I think, there comes a point where you yourself have to just say, all right, I got this past generational trauma when it comes to whether it's bill collectors or overspending, or because I have to wear pay, or I had to wear pay less. Now I want to buy all designer. Like at the end of the day, man, managing money is not hard. It's just a function of us actually doing it. Everything starts with a budget. And then next, once we start paying ourselves first, I think we're all conditioned in society to pay our bills, whether it's your phone bill, your light bill, your mortgage, your rent, etc. I think once we start paying ourselves first, it's very easy to get rich. It's just a function of if you're disciplined enough to understand it might take you 25 years to get there.
Say more about paying yourself first. Like, what does that mean? How do you do that?
By paying us, I mean, so here's what I mean by paying yourself first, right? I think we all know um, what direct deposit is, right? You don't have to think about it. That check is going to automatically hit your account, right? You work for a job. Your job, you you put your bank account to it. Guess what? That is going to automatically hit your account. Now, what I mean by paying yourself first is kind of the same concept where that money is going to actually come out of your account every month or every other week, whatever you set it up for. But that's now going towards either your savings account, your retirement account, your investing account. And so not having to think about it, it takes the psychology out of it. And now you're taking 100, 2, 3, $400 out of your account every month, and that's being invested.
There's this quote I found from you where you said, I've given my community a comprehensive grasp of how to create lasting wealth and invest for the long term. Say more about this, and like, what are some of the foundational steps we should take when we're starting on a wealth building journey? Like, what are the first things we need to do that sets a landscape for building up?
Yeah, I love to tell people to work backwards sometimes, right? Right. Like at the end of the day, the best time to plant a tree was, 20 years ago. The second best time is to plant one today. And so I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
the average person needs to say, okay, I'm not where I want to be, but that's not the end of the world. I can actually still get there. There is a pathway to getting there. So now is it I have to aggressively get out of debt. I have to aggressively save. I have to aggressively invest. And so I think what that comprehensive plan is one, you start with mindset, you goal set, you budget, you get out of debt, right? Get out of that bad debt. You don't need to be in credit cards, carrying the balance of something that's accruing, right? Compounding at over 20% per annum interest rate. And so after that, it's just about aggressively investing. I think, the average person wants to be rich, but the average person doesn't want to make the sacrifices today. And so, I tell people all the time, look, if you put $350 a month aside in a investment account, putting it into the S&P 500, where it's going to, on average, get you 10% returns in a year, you'll have over $1 million when you get ready to retire in 25, 30 years. And so it's just a function of how do you work backwards to get there. And, so there's a 25X rule that literally says, because the average person, right, 40% of people will run out of money once it comes to retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you ensure you don't run out of money, right? You literally start with that budget and you see exactly what your annual expenses are, the necessary expenses that you take, right? And so in order to not run out of money, you just take the average annual expenses and you multiply that by 25. And that is how much money you need to have saved in your investment account for you to actually say, okay, I can retire. Because the average person is working well through that retirement age because they didn't plan ahead of time.
How did Ross learn this? Like, tell me about your upbringing. Did you see people who were financially savvy in the household, or you made a bunch of mistakes like
Yeah,
people like me did?
no. So what I will say is, you know, I, I learned early on the value of a dollar. I've been an entrepreneur since I was selling candy in the third grade, right? But what I will say is, I come from some parents that would be, frugal, would teach me the value of a dollar, but I never really knew about investing. I never knew about the power of credit, how to buy a home, etc. Right. So I'm from the south side of Chicago, middle class family. And I will say, right, I worked hard, went to a good school. I graduated from the Wharton School at University of Pennsylvania, worked on Wall Street, etc. But a lot of stuff, the vast majority of the things I learned was just being in the right place, right time, right? I tell people all the time, the greatest teacher is exposure, right? And I remember my freshman year at Penn, there was a kid day trading in the middle of class. I'm bro, what are you doing? Asian kid,
Mm,
right? Day trading in the middle of class at that moment. That's what made me say I'm about to start investing. I opened up a portfolio within a week of that, right? Learning about different tax hacks by being once again in the right place, right time, while working on Wall Street and hearing other people talk about it, by walking down because people on a trading floor, you don't have actual cubicles. Everybody sits side by side with their various screens. I remember
yeah.
seeing a managing director check his 401k and he had a couple million in there. So oh, wait, hold on now. What's going on? So now I'm starting to
Yeah.
think about retirement. And so I think by being submerged in it, but once again, accidentally learning and then being intentional about, okay, how do I do this now? What do I need to do as a parent to ensure my kids never have student loans? What do I need to do to be intentional to ensure that my kids got the ability to, if they graduate, to say, hey, I want to take a gap year, or hey, I want to explore having a startup. So it's about a little luck, being at the right place, right time. But the biggest thing is intentionality, right? It's not taught in our school, so you got to teach yourselves.
Talk about some technology, even applications that you might, be using on the regular basis, daily, weekly, or monthly. Like I know my Schwab account is on my phone. My Acorns automatically pulls money out or rounds up. Obviously, things like Coinbase if you're in crypto or there's others also. But what is Ross using? What's Ross Mac
Yeah,
using?
every morning, and I'm looking at my phone, right? There's something powerful about, and I got like something powerful about those updates, right? I probably got to zoom in, but CNBC,
Yeah,
Yahoo Finance, I want those updates every hour on the hour, every morning, right? Where once again, you're learning things through osmosis. There's some stuff you're not going to understand, but then there are things that will. And so I love always having, the financial based apps where you turn the notifications on, where you're going to get those push throughs of what's going on in the world. To your point, I love having those investing and saving apps on my phone, right? Where you now taking the guessing work out of it. Um, I love, leveraging, because one, right, everything has been democratized. You got the ability to, invest from the power of your phone. I love the YouTube and the Google University, right? Where now that is the number one. You ain't got to go to Harvard. You can just go to Google and YouTube and learn everything you really need to know. And so I love utilizing those platforms to learn. I got a budgeting app, or the budgeting Excel worksheet where I need to be able to control my inflows and outflows. Like you say, crypto, I got Coinbase on my phone. Like at the end of the day, right? I think it's just a function of saying it starts with intentionality, it starts with education. Then it's about you being intentional on saying, I'm going to save, I'm going to invest. And it's just a function of, learning and then putting everything you learn into practice.
Yeah, I want you to say more about this osmosis and just you may not understand everything, you may not understand all the notifications you get on your phone, but just being around it is helpful. Like I started reading the annual report from Berkshire Hathaway, like
Mhm.
especially the chairman's report, and even though like I'm a small like tiny minute shareholder there, and just seeing how he thinks and seeing how these people think can impact you positively, and it gets you in the mindset of wealth making, wealth generation, money making. Can you talk more about, just even though you don't understand everything that you may see in the Wall Street Journal, read it anyway? Why is there value there?
We choose to consume what we consume. So, right, if you were to consume, insert your favorite drill rapper, and they start talking about different guns and different drugs, first thing you're gonna do is, what are they saying? You might Google that, or you might go to what are the lyrics, right? I say that all to say we choose to learn what we want to learn. And I think you have to be just as intentional when it comes to learning about the stuff that actually impacts you, which is money, right? Like you're not making no money by listening to rappers. You're not making no money by going on Shade Room and reading the comments, but you can make money by going, by reading the annual shareholder report, by going on CNBC and Yahoo Finance, right? You have to just say, how could I be intentional? And so, to your point, when you start out, it's going to sound like a different language, but you understand certain things as it comes, right? You need to understand what happens if the Fed is lowering interest rates. What does that mean to you? You're a borrower in all assets of whether it's borrowing money for a car, borrowing money for a house, or just credit cards, right? Or your student loan money. Like at the end of the day, you need to understand that impact on what prices do versus when interest rates go, right? And so I think the more you are submerged in it, the easier you start learning to speak the language of finance.
You know, you talked about YouTube University and being on X and just seeing what people are doing. There's a lot of misinformation out there too. And so, how do you know what's credible and not credible if you're starting out?
I look at it like dating, right? I think, when you are getting ready to date, ladies, y'all got that one friend that's going to be able to scrub the internet and find
Mm.
all his ex-girlfriends, etc., right? In the same, right? Like you got to be able to go back and see, does this person have any credibility? Because to your point, it's a lot of scams, a lot of misinformation. So I think, it boils down to the same way you would date. You're not going to take what a person say from face value. You're going to see, do we got any friends in common? You're going to then go get a background report. What's this person Carfax? Do you know this person, this, that, and the third? And it's the same, right? Like at the end of the day, you should never take what anybody says for face value. You got to see if that person truly did work where they say they worked. Is this person, trying to scam you? Is this person really for the people trying to put you on? And I think, at the moment, right, you can then go to those credible websites, those the CNBCs, the Yahoo Finances, right? Whether it's the Charles Schwab, the E Trades, right? Like they have a lot of different resources. A lot of companies that I work with, TIAA, right? If we talk of retirement, right? SoFi, right? Like it's so many different companies, but right, I have no issue with that one person that you may not have heard of having a viral post, and that just kind of makes a light bulb go off in your head. But then now let that give you the fuel to then say, okay, I want to learn more about this particular topic, and then dive deeper and go further into it.
Yeah, I like that. You've built some remarkable partnerships with companies like Google and LinkedIn. How do you approach strategic strategically building relationships, and what advice you give other people who are trying to collaborate with big partners? How does this work?
I think it. I think most companies want to see a person that is credible, but also pure and genuine in what they're doing. And so I started my business while I was a full time entrepreneur, while I was working on Wall Street, whatever it was, right? Like the goal is to be a person that is adding value. And so if you're a person that's adding value and have a decent following, right? And I'm not saying hundreds of thousands, right? You can have 10,000 followers, 5,000 followers, as long as they are engaged and those 5,000 people are truly champions of your mission, right? Then those brands can very well say, okay, there's some value add that this person can have. And so I started with credibility. I started with being a champion of the people. In my business, I started doing everything for free, right? And so now brands are like, yo, we like his approach. We would love to work with him, and whether it's creating content for them or actually coming and speaking to their employees, right? Like at the end of the day, financial literacy is the one thing we all need, but it's never taught to us. And so, I found a niche in a world where I make it more easily digestible for the average person,
Hmm.
whether you're a kid or you from the inner cities or you from a rural suburban area and you're making $10 million a year, right? If you're an athlete, it don't matter. We still need to know these basic concepts of wealth building.
How do we approach crypto as Black people? I mean, there's studies that have shown, like, a lot of Black people have gotten scammed in crypto or been uneducated investors in crypto. I don't even know if you want to call it investor at that point, but we've been uneducated aping into a lot of these things. How should we approach crypto
Look,
as potential investors?
I think it boils down to the same way as dating, right? You see that one guy, ladies, they got the Gucci shoes on, they done bought the table, only to find out fam is living paycheck to paycheck. The car he had was rented and he really living with his homeboy, his mama. Da, da. Like, look, man, you got to actually understand what you're buying. When it comes to any asset, know what you're buying, do the research, and understand the value add and the use case. So when it comes to crypto, whether we talking crypto or get rich quick schemes, when it comes to stocks, whether that is the GameStops of the world, right? Or if we talking the ape coins and the Doge coins, right? Like at the end of the day, know what you're buying, know what the value add is, and from there do more research to see what it is. And so when it comes to buying crypto, I'm gonna tell you to buy the ones that have a use case that are the largest, whether that is the Bitcoin and the Ethereums, but understand what it is, understand why there's value in it. And if you don't truly understand it, there's no harm lost, no harm, no foul in not buying it. But where it becomes harmful is when you're buying things because of the FOMO, the YOLO, right? Where now you're just buying it because you saw or heard somebody say, yo, I just made 200% returns in a day. Now you have a herd mentality and you buying stuff that actually
Mm-hmm.
you were lured into buying it, right? And so I think it boils down to doing the work, understanding the use case of the underlying asset, right? I don't want you to buy a penny stock. I don't want you to buy a penny, a worthless cryptocurrency. So the same concept.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect segue into this idea about patience. You've talked about, how we need to avoid this get rich quick mentality. And you also talked about compounding and what that means over time. Like you don't get wealthy overnight. Can you talk about some of the things that you found successful when you try to communicate like, wealth is a, generational thing. It's a long-term play versus, tomorrow it's all there.
I got a mentor that used to tell me, he say, look, man, making money should be like watching paint dry, right? Making long-term money should be
Wow.
like if you having too much fun, it ain't gonna last. Or right,
Mm.
like, and I say that all to say wealth is made long term by being diligent, being consistent and disciplined. So whether that is you taking $1,000 every month or $200 or $100 every month, being disciplined and consistent in growing your wealth over a long course of time. And so I think way too often we get on social media and you hear this person's day trading or that person is trading cryptocurrencies or NFTs was a big fad, right? Like at the end of the day, or GameStop to the moon, YOLO, diamond hands. Look, at the end of the day, they're very um, well trained marketers that go on social media and lure you into buying different assets, right? Sheeps and wolves clothing, etc. Unfortunately, we fall victim. But the true way of building wealth is being disciplined, investing every month into uh, great performing investments, whether that's ETFs or the top companies, that being the Apples, the Amazons, the Microsofts, the Googles, the Nvidias, etc. Um, and doing that over the course of time, over 20, 30 years, right? Like we talk about generational wealth, but you have to be willing to own certain securities for generations as well in order to truly get the wealth. So it's all about discipline, and I think try not to fall victim to the get rich quick schemes.
Yeah, I want you to go in there because you said a couple of times about and I love what you just how you just positioned like very well trained marketers who are really good at luring us into doing things. And can you talk about the levels of deception that we too often fall victim to when you see somebody on IG, you see them on TikTok or Snap, and they got the car, they got the jewelry, they're wearing designer, and it's really they trying to get your money.
So there's a saying in investing where it's like the moment everybody's talking about it, it's now too late, right? And so you ask yourself, how's everybody talking about it? It's marketing, right? Same with sports betting, right? I go on Instagram and I see somebody made $100,000 off a $100 parlay, right? That is marketing. That is enticing me to now go make a sports bet and a parlay where the you got less than a percent you got a less than a percent chance of hitting, right? When you add the more and more
Mm-hmm.
legs you add to the parlay, right? But that one person you thought won, that's marketing, right? And so when it's all said and done, you have to say to yourself, right? The moment the average person is talking about it, right? It is now too late. And what that is like buy the rumor, sell the news. And so when people are saying, "Oh, now it's time to buy," um, you know, oh now, right? Every time when everybody and their auntie was talking about buying Nvidia, right? Nvidia's down now, right? Relative. And I'm not
Yeah,
saying that should ever deter you. Anytime you buy a stock, I want you to go into it saying, I'm going to buy this for the long term, right? And so
that's right.
Nvidia
That's
will
right.
be higher in 5 years, no matter what the case is. I don't care what's going on, unless the world is ending, right? And so I don't want you, right? Like, so for starters, you want to go into an investment knowing what it does, how it makes money, what is this company's competitive advantage, what makes them better than everybody else, and then own it for the long term. But once you get sucked into the Reddit community, the Instagram, the Twitter, right? There's certain ways that people are marketing to you so that you can go buy it. That doesn't do anything but make those people that market it to you, their value go higher than they sell it, right? It's a pump and dump scheme.
Yeah, I want you to talk about because there's something else to this slow growth and paint dry, sort of thing that I think too many in our community get caught up on is, if I put, $1,000 away and I'm gaining, 1% or 0.5% or whatever it is that I'm gaining above what I might have been gaining before the Fed, did what it did, you know, in a year, 2 years, 3 years, you're talking about hundreds of dollars, not meaningful dollars. And so when
Yeah.
we think about, um, we want these, we want 10,000 to turn it into 20,000, 20,000 to turn it into 40. Why is that a dangerous way of thinking? Or is it a dangerous way of thinking?
Well, here's the thing, right? There's a law 72, the rule of 72, right? Where at 10% returns in the S&P 500, your money will double every 7 years. So, right? Year 7, you just flipped 100 to 200. Year 14, 2 to 4. 21, you're at year 21, 4 to 8, 8 to 1.6. And it's just a function of that's in 28 years, right? And so I think I did it right. Y'all could play it back. I might
Yeah,
have missed it.
yeah.
Who knows? But the idea is like being astute, disciplined is the name of the game, right? Like I love the idea of investing every month. And so put it like this, right? There's something called portfolio construction. I want you to think about this like when you were applying to college and your guidance counselor told you you want to have your safety schools, your reach schools, and your dream schools, right? Safety is your stable investment portfolio where the vast majority of your money's at, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is the great blue chip stocks. That is your ETFs, right? Your exchange traded funds, your S&P 500s, NASDAQs, etc., right? Then you got your reach and then your dream. The reach can be, right, whether it's venture capital investments, whether that is certain portions of your crypto. But guess what? You're not going to put 100%. If you were a senior in college and you got a 3-point GPA with a 27 on the ACT, you're not going to only you're not you're not going to only apply to Harvard. That is a
Mm-hmm.
reach.
Yeah.
That's a dream.
Yeah.
Instead, you're going to look at some of your state schools, some of your yada yada, like where you for sure should get in versus what your dream is, and that's how you should think about what's something called portfolio construction. So I have no issue with you buying certain crypto, right? Long as you did the work, understand the value, and understand if this is an investment or a trade. But it should be a smaller percentage of your overall portfolio when it comes to thinking of it like applying to schools.
Yeah, like that. And so on the other side of entertainment, you talked a lot about trying to make things digestible and accessible for our communities. How much does entertainment from the positive side play into being able to, reach your audience?
You got to meet your people where they at, right? So if they on social media, you got to have your content there. You see it from the biggest to the smallest, right? You got to be able to meet your people. Our attention spans are smaller. Our screen time on our cell phones are a lot longer. 7, 8 hours is getting insane, right? But at the same time, if you have the ability to educate, right? Educate and entertain, or edutainment, excuse me, if you got the ability to educate and entertain, there's nothing wrong with it. I think that when we talk about building wealth in our community and by the year 2050, the median net worth of a black family is going to be zero. How do we ensure that that never comes? It comes from everybody, right? We need the politicians coming up with different things. We need the teachers showing us different ways. We need the internet, financial advisors, etc. We need It's a collective approach that we need everybody doing a part. And my part is continuing to show you the way, continuing to help educate and give people the blueprint and say, hey, it's okay that your parents didn't have this type of account for you, but guess what? Now you know about this, so do that for your kids. And so it's just a function of making sure everybody understands that in order to be better, we got to learn from our mistakes and actually be intentional about building wealth in the community.
You had said, despite the fact that my children are only 1 and 2 years old, this may have been some time ago. You said I speak to them about the economy, stocks, and credit scores. For when they're that young, how do you speak to them? How, like, what kind of things are you saying that may be understandable at that level?
I try to put it in their own language, but I still talk to them like they're adults. And what I mean by in their own language is no goo goo gaga talk, but something that makes it relatable to them. And so the things that are relatable is the stuff that they're accustomed to. So if my kid is getting a report card now, or they're getting a report, right? Hey, your teacher told us, you were bad in school. That's a report. So if I'm talking about a FICO score, you could put it in that language where it's like, hey, this is a report card for how well you pay your bills back or how well you pay back the money that you borrow. They might not understand what borrowing is, but it will start to click as we get there. And so, or if I say, hey, you know, you, hey, um, you own Amazon, right? The Kindle that you watch such and such on, hey, you own this, right? Not only do you have it in your possession, but you own the stock. And so it's just a function of thinking about it. Like my kids are starting to think about, oh, I want to go to this type of school, right? My oldest just turned 4 a week or so ago. Now you're just putting it in that language. But I think that you just got to understand at some point it will get easier and easier for them to comprehend it, right? Like I put a basketball in my son's hand. He get frustrated when he missed a shot. And I'm saying, oh, you shooting it too hard. It'll get only easier and easier as he gets more reps. And the same thing with, it'll get easier to comprehend and digest the information as they get exposed to it earlier and earlier.
Yeah, like that. What about parents who are not rich or wealthy themselves? Can non-wealthy and non-rich parents teach their kids to be rich or wealthy?
Absolutely. Look, in order to build generational wealth, the generational curse got to stop somewhere. It got to come from that one person to be uh, selfless and bold and disciplined to get there. And so, minimal things like this, right? People don't understand. There's like Rome wasn't built in a day, and wealth doesn't have to start in 5 years, right? Like there's a mindset first and foremost. So, a parent by purely saying, "Hey, I'm a new parent. Let me be selfless. Let me get life insurance." You don't got to be rich to own life insurance, but when you do eventually, right, pass away, you can have $1 million policy, right? That can give your kids some comfort when you do pass away, right? So that's first step. So it's a mindset. And also, there are a lot of people that were rich or that are rich that didn't start with money, right? It's just a level of discipline. Once again, we all can find $200 a month. That's how much it costs to get your hair done. Barbers cost that right now. It's $100 for a haircut these
Yeah,
days. How many
yeah,
drinks in the club, right? Like this, just a function of where do you want. It's about being intentional. If you want to intentionally save and overinvest, you can get there. Right. The easiest way to get a raise at your job is not going and asking your boss for a raise. it's actually cutting back expenses. So starting with the budget, knowing how you're spending your money. Are you overspending when it comes to Uber and Grubhub and dining out? Maybe dine out 2 times less. That's an extra $200. Now you can invest that. It's just a function, right, of being intentional and coming up with a plan and goal setting.
Ross Mac, so glad you joined me, my brother.